Hey everyone, thanks for joining us in our Patreon spoiler talk for the book Dracula versus Hitler. We've been talking a while about the book Dracula versus... Actually, I'm going to be honest, we haven't been talking a lot about the book itself, but the kind of political offshoot of fucking topics that it has brought us to. But there's some stuff about the book that we want to talk about that we couldn't talk about in the review without spoiling things, so that's what we're here to do right now.
I would like to talk about magic and how ridiculous my next few statements are going to sound, because we are talking about a book that's about an immortal person who has to drink blood to survive and has superpowers and whatever, but I'm mad about the magic.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about the magic.
So here's where it starts off in the book.
Was it that weird flower petal shit?
Yeah, but very early on, I go, motherfucker, there's gonna be goddamn magic in this book, and it's treated pretty well. Lucy is watching through binoculars as the SS marches on whatever town they were in at the beginning, and the SS colonel major whatever has the mayor of the town, Van Helsing, and some three other, I think, important political people in the town in this office, and she casts like a protection spell. And I'm like, motherfucker, this is rough. But the way it reads is like, maybe the spell helped, maybe it didn't, maybe it's just kind of coincidence. So I go, okay, I can understand that, because she does it later in the book, kind of to the same result, that everybody's okay, but nothing really transpires that makes you think the magic worked till you get to the fucking end.
Whoa. Can we go back a little bit?
Sure.
Let's talk about this first instance of magic. Right?
Let's.
And I'm going to step away from that for a second. I'm going to talk about and I'm not going to talk, I can't talk about my personal experience with Romanians, because that's essentially you. Right?
I'm probably a bad way to gauge
plus,
a whole nation.
plus your mom liking everything on Facebook. That's really my experience with Romanians, is you plus your mom liking everything on Facebook. She's adorable. However, Eastern Europeans in general, really fucking superstitious people, right?
I think we talked on this podcast about how Romanian legislators,
yeah, wearing the color purple,
yeah,
from witches.
So yes, you are. Yes.
All right, and then and fucking taking that a step further, have you ever read your fortune in tea or coffee cups?
Yes.
Right.
I should say I've seen it. I've seen it happen.
You've seen it done, or it's been done for you, or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe this is majorly, if you go back to our review on the regular podcast, a Turkish thing that's been kind of spread into all the countries that they've wronged. But anyway, highly superstitious country in general, right?
Right.
So you would think that performing magic, whether it was actual magic or whether it was an implied magic that just made people feel better about the shit that was going on, was a pretty regular thing, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so please continue.
My point is, and that's the first time it's delivered okay, because there's this kind of there's this moment where I think that's the Colonel Reichel, I think, right, when he first arrives. I think that's his character. At any rate,
yes.
And he turns to Van Helsing, and him and Van Helsing are having words, and Lucy has cast this protective spell to protect her father, most importantly, but everybody in the room, basically. And the major kind of zones out and kind of just goes back to talking to someone else. And you go, maybe that was magic, maybe it wasn't. At the end of the book, we see actual straight-up fucking magic. It's not a maybe.
Yeah.
I thought, the second time it happened, I thought, oh, okay, she's doing this protective spell. But if we don't see any evidence that the spell worked, then it's the superstitious, I'm wearing purple.
Right.
I guess
it's the implication of magic versus the actual existence of magic.
Yeah. Those guys wore purple, and I go, oh, those guys are fucking clowns or whatever. I don't know if purple warded anything off. Now, let's suppose that all of a sudden they're all wearing purple, and this outrageous fire and explosions break out all around them, but they are completely unaffected because the little 20 square feet that they're standing in can't be burned because they're wearing purple. Then I'm going, holy shit, that's fucking magic.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate him wearing purple to ward off the evil. If it actually worked and I could see evidence of that, I'd be like, holy shit, magic. So yeah, the magic at the end bothered me a lot.
Yeah. I agree with you on like a realistic perspective.
Mm-hmm.
The existence of actual like magic that helped someone do something was disappointing to me.
But it's in a book that has a vampire, and that's why I said I realize it's going to sound ridiculous because that's
Right,
what I've
that's the
chosen
thing.
to be fucking angry about, right?
But the problem is, it was from the perspective of the person who saw the magic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could say that it was just what that person seeing what they wanted to see, as opposed to the objective existence of actual magic. That being said, I fully felt the way that you felt about it. I was like, this is some bullshit.
The other bullshit I'm going to call on this, and again, I didn't do this on the podcast because it is literally in the last like 6% of the book, the fucking tightrope walker, where she decides to start. So
my god,
right,
yes.
So spoiler talk, right? So Dracula's captured, Renfield's captured, and the remainder of them want to go rescue him, but they're in Castle Bran, which they didn't make enough of a big deal about because they were in Dracula's castle. And I also thought that was another miss on the part of the author to not introduce something where maybe part of their escape was due to Dracula knowing something about his fucking home where they're keeping him.
Yeah, I really thought they could have done more with the fact that he was the one that owned and lived in the castle.
Well, and they don't even mention, so they mention early in the book that that's his castle, but in that section where they're saying, like, that's where the stronghold is, that's where they're keeping him, no one ever brings it up.
Like, at the very least, they could have been like, well, he hasn't been there in 50 years. However,
Something.
Like the ancestor of Richard Thomas, who would eventually do a writing conference there, somehow knew about the castle. Anyway, just joking.
Right, exactly. No, I gotcha. But yeah, so this bitch. So anyway, they enlist the help of gypsies, which Rob mentioned in the thing, who are glad to go help because Dracula was always good to their people. So they've got this little army of gypsies, and one of them is a tightrope walker who was saved earlier by Harker. So we know why she's bought in, because between Harker and Dracula, her life was saved. But at one point, they're having trouble, like they're pinned down by gunfire, and they want to throw grenades, but they're at a bad angle. So this bitch decides that since she is a tightrope walker, she could just walk on telephone lines, and like she's being shot at with machine guns, and then ultimately she's shot in the arm with a machine gun, but does not lose her balance, which is interesting because I think that taking a slug, like even in the arm from a machine gun, is enough to knock you off a tightrope.
Yeah, I don't care what you're specialized in. Getting shot, if you're not shot all the time, getting shot is something that's going to throw you off your game.
Yep. But then she falls and Harker like catches her. Like, I mean, just it was such a terrible, terrible fucking scene.
It was, you know what it was? It was for the Harker character. It was redemption for the Harker character for getting fucking like blue balls for Lucy not being into him. That's all it was.
Yeah. Let's talk about Lucy for a minute.
Oh God.
The second worst scene in this fucking book is when she is already prepared. I mean, from their, they have to like go through the mountains to find the gypsies and stuff. But she has brought some really sexy lingerie with her for reasons unbeknownst to anybody but her that she decides to use as a distraction in the castle. So she strips down, puts on the see-through negligee to approach two soldiers. But she's also painted up like a zombie?
Like a ghost. She was supposed to be a ghost, a sexy ghost.
Okay. So that was her plan on how to get past two guards, was to be a sexy ghost, to get close enough that she could stab them or shoot them or whatever.
Can we pause for a second?
Sure.
Because if I was a soldier and a sexy ghost showed up, probably I'm compromised in one way or another.
Dude, let's be honest. If you were a soldier and you thought you saw a ghost, you'd fucking run, not engage it.
Yeah, or I'd shoot it.
If I remember correctly, the soldier actually like grabs his junk and tells her he's got something for her, which is also a fairly unrealistic.
Wait, was that a Romanian soldier or a German soldier? Because I think this is going to be.
Oh, you know what?
Definitive.
All right. You've made. Okay, hold on. I got to find this. All right, I have it because I highlighted part of this passage. Then began to walk down the stairs. She kept her eyes wide, raised her arms into her best white zombie walk. Halt. All right. What the fuck? One murmured. Maybe this wasn't the part where the guy grabbed his junk.
No, you're right there. You were like a page behind. You're a page ahead of it.
All right. Oh, yeah. I'll help you, he leered. With this. He released the machine gun and grabbed his crotch. Just what she was waiting for. Oh, his name's Fritz. So, yeah, he has to be German.
Fritz is, yeah, stereotypical German name. Absolutely.
Fucking, I'll help you with this, and grabbed his crotch. I'm pretty sure that maybe
I do that like on a daily basis, though. So
yeah, that's why I threw soldier in there, because I realized I was talking to you, and I know that you're a big crotch grabber from way back.
Fucking, I grab my crotch every day.
So we talked about some really cheesy shit. This is some of it that we didn't want to spoil because it's all in the last part of the book. But holy crap, was some of that bad. I will say that. I will say for our Patreons that the Hitler character was kind of interesting. I just saw this because it's the thing I bookmarked right before that. Where from his diary says, the response sounded Jewish, which explained the cowardly manner. So do you not love this fucking guy?
Okay, that reminds me. So there was a note that I made, and this is an entirely different scene, and I believe it takes place well before the Bran Castle showdown. But I want to point this out. Is that cool?
Mm-hmm.
So at one point there was a sabotage of a railway thing, and honestly, like there was a lot of train sabotage that was going on in this book. I almost said movie because I'd really like to see this movie. But there was one specific train thing. So at one point the Nazis had started sending some of the captives from the hometown of the Van Helsings off to concentration camps, and so they wanted to stop this train that these people were being sent off on to save the people before they made it to the concentration camp. And so this whole elaborate thing went down. If you read the book, you know what I'm talking about. If you didn't, there's this really elaborate kind of thing where they stop the train and a bunch of crazy fucked up things happen. But the result of it is they send the train plus some of the full train cars full of fuel back to the station that it came from in order to sabotage the station by blowing it up. And as I said in the beginning of this review, this book is entirely told without any kind of derivation, is entirely told from the perspective of the people whose journals we're reading or whose books we're reading and stuff like that. And at one point, and Livius, I don't know if you noticed this, but at one point, the story is told from the perspective of the person that's guarding the rail station.
Yes. Yep.
Right? Does this bother you too?
It did. I forgot all about it, but I did when I was reading. I was like, so who are we hearing this from? And it's told. Do you have your note? Because it's told during Harker's diary, I think. It
was from Harker's diary, but told from the perspective of the person who is the guard at the rail station that gets blown up when they send the train back to the rail station it came from. And I was like, and I made a note because I highlighted part of it. Hang on, let me get back to my highlights. I'll read the quote first. Dawn was quiet at the rail terminal. The commanding officer was not an early riser, and since he led by example, Reville, whatever, was determined by the severity of the sergeant major's hangover. On this particular morning, the sentry at the station ambled about the rail yards, awake for once. He had fallen asleep in an old company chair, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, this is personal information from the perspective of the sergeant major, that there's fucking no possible way that our British person, the Harker person, character would have ever known. And that bothered me a lot.
Yeah, later on he does that again, but he actually clarifies to say the things I write down here are either things I saw or that were told to me by other eyewitnesses. So like that Anka lady or whatever told, he's just talking about the results of, I think it's just the people who are hauled away. I think that's during the whole segment where everybody that's part of his team is being hauled away and he's getting there too late.
Yeah.
At like every stop to
Right. I know what you're talking about.
The rest of it, right. Yeah. So that he at least qualifies and says, hey, the rest of this stuff, some of it was just told to me by eyewitnesses. Because, like, he talks about how the guy's losing at a card game, when they bust in the door and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, and the thing that bothered me when I read that was I kept thinking that was, like, an integral part to the story, which is why they had to include that, and it wasn't.
No, like
it wasn't.
The entire reason that they had that train thing was the weakness where the Nazis finally got one up on them, because they found the camera that showed Dracula fucking eating the shit out of some Nazis.
Yep.
Like, that's the only reason.
That guy's personal story didn't matter.
No, not at all. It was set dressing for the fact that that massacre happened on the train, which was recorded by a camera, which was thrown out of the train, which was then recovered by Nazis that Hitler saw, and that's what brought Hitler to Romania. Is it? Because, like, they said Romania.
I have no idea. That's one thing I don't know. And I think I've actually asked my mom, who didn't have an explanation for that either, why you occasionally see it as RU.
Yeah. That was the plot contrivance that they needed in order to bring Hitler to Romania, was the fact that Harkin, it's all the same thing. I knew a Harkin. I worked for a guy named Harkin, so that's why.
Was he also related to?
He might have been related to the guy that fought Hitler, or not Hitler, Dracula back in the day. All tied back to the fact that, it's bullshit. That's what I'm trying to say. Right. I don't want to follow that fucking thread again. I was so close.
I think that we're good on spoilers. We could probably return back to our regularly scheduled podcast and wrap this up. And
wait, did we talk about who wins, Dracula or Hitler?
No, we didn't. So we could talk about that. Nobody fucking wins.
No one wins. It's bullshit. It's a fucking draw.
I will say
Hitler
this,
escapes.
Though. Were you under the impression? I was really under the impression, as Hitler is leaving Germany, he's talking about his stand-in quite a bit. And I thought for sure Dracula is going to kill Hitler, and then the Hitler that winds up continuing and ultimately losing the war is the stand-in.
See, that would have been a much better story.
I'm telling you, I said during spoiler talk how I would make this better. That was one of them. You would have actually had Hitler killed, but it wouldn't have affected history at all, because, as already was established in the book, there is a stand-in that nobody, other than the fact that Hitler thinks his speeches are a little weak, nobody can tell the difference. So he finishes off the war. So you could have had that, which would have been an amazing thing. You could you could have not had the Harker and Renfield character, because it added a level of cheese that didn't need to be there. So Van Helsing bringing him back, we agreed, was a brilliant idea for a concept, right? He brings back his worst enemy to
fight a greater enemy.
But his argument is perfect to Dracula, where he says, "Look, this is still your country, and I know you loved your country, and it's being overrun."
Right.
So I can see Dracula being like, all right, let's let bygones be bygones.
Which fucking validates the fact that Van Helsing understood so much about Dracula. Like, it fits very well together.
Yeah, so you would have done that. You could have still had the daughter for the love interest and a more modern look at things, because she was a very, very feminist.
Oh my God, yeah. Like, character. she would have marched today.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I kind of pictured her as the I don't know what her name is, but I think it was maybe in the 50s, the chick with the do-rag that, like, would make the, like...
Oh yeah, she's burning her bras and shit like that.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the one that has, like, the tattoo and, like, makes the I'm doing it here, like, the muscle with the hand.
Oh yeah. Rosie the Riveter?
That's her, yes. So I almost pictured Lucille as a hot version of that. I would have killed some of this cheesy ass shit, her running around in her fucking nightie pretending to be a ghost, the tightrope walker, the magic. And you know what you would have had? You would have had a pretty decent book.
You would have had... So I think that's... The book survived on the historical fiction part of it, not fission. I don't know why I can't say fiction. The book survived on the historical fiction part of it. And everything else that kind of permeated it kind of took away from it in a way. The weird magical parts of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like I said, I couldn't get over fucking Renfield. I mean, Renfield eats fucking bugs.
Yeah.
And there's no explanation as to why, they don't even say like Renfield is some descendant of the original Renfield, and that's why he's drawn to Dracula. They're like, he got a bump on his head and he sings dirty limericks.
Yeah,
and
they just needed a Renfield.
Yeah, there's just no, and I mean, they even try to explain away the name because the code name was given to him by Harker, who has read the book and has tried to pry information from his grandfather.
Yep.
So, it's the other thing that was weird. It was his grandfather, but it was Van Helsing's daughter. And I didn't try to work out the time frame thing, but that also seemed a little off. Like, I know they said Van Helsing was much older when he had her, but Harker was younger than Van Helsing. In the Dracula book. Well, Van Helsing was already like an older guy, and Harker was like, I don't want to say a kid, but probably like in his early 20s or whatever.
Well, this goes into something that we're going to talk about later, but I watched the movie Dracula tonight.
Beautiful. I guess, is this spoiler worthy, or do we go back to...
No, we'll go back to the original thing.
All right. Thanks for listening to Spoiler Talk. Thank you so much for being a Patreon contributor. You guys are awesome. I don't know what else to say.
We love you.